In this section, we consider the tendency for humans to select their leaders from those that might not necessarily be the most capable of addressing issues in the modern world. We know there is a mismatch with how we select leaders, and we have already considered the tendency of the mass media to focus on some attributes of leadership at the expense of others. So while this is a review of what we have considered already in this class, it is worthwhile to take into consideration those cues and signals that affect our decision making in light of evolutionary theory and its application by Mark Van Vugt and his colleagues in their Evolutionary Leadership Theory's Savannah Hypothesis. With this approach, we know that in our ancestral societies, individuals with a specific suite of physical characteristics and behavioral traits are more likely to become leaders because they address survival-relevant issues. However, while these characteristics and traits became hardwired due to selection processes, the world changed and the traits that leaders were selected for became not as important. One could plausibly argue that these characteristics have little to no bearing on the success of groups in our current environment. Indeed, in some cases, choosing leaders based upon these characteristics and traits could lead to threats to group survival. One of the ways to consider why we humans make many of the bad choices that we do is because our default approach is mismatched with the modern environments that we live in. Essentially, we humans have created our own environmental niches that are very much different than what we evolved in. So much so that things that might be considered necessary for survival, such as fatty and sweet foods, actually lead to our poor health and eventually early deaths. Other choices that might not be seen so immediately impactful, such as a propensity for some humans to relocate where they live on a regular basis for better economic conditions, can be seen as leading to the breakdown of social and family structures. This, in turn, is connected with greater stress and early death. In short, many of the physical and psychological problems we have might not be us so much as the environment we have constructed for ourselves. Chris von Ruden and Mark Van Vugt provide the best explanation of how the mismatch hypothesis can be applied to leadership, whether political or otherwise, when they said, the decisions of followers and leaders are shaped by evolved decision rules designed in the context of small-scale societies, and can be mismatched to the evolutionarily novel environment of large-scale societies. They go on to state that occasionally these decision rules are mismatched to modern environments, especially when the latter have changed rapidly, resulting in suboptimal or seemingly irrational decision-making by followers and leaders. The means by which we make poor leadership decisions becomes more salient considering the information that we humans tend to consume through the mass media. This information is often anxiety-inducing to attract attention, and with this attention, ratings and advertisement dollars, and often results in our choosing leaders that may be inappropriate for survival and success. The question then becomes one of, how are we making mistakes with our leadership decisions? A major factor is that structurally, we're choosing leaders based upon our assumptions about who they are, often without even meeting them. In our evolutionary past, with small-scale societies we evolved in, we would know our leaders and choose the correct one for the correct task. Instead, we now make thin slice assessments based upon what little we know to fuel quick and easy decisions. To better understand our poor leadership decision making, we need to address a variety of major factors that are driven by our consideration of a mediated world when we make decisions. First impressions matter, whether it deals with people generally or leaders specifically. And the one thing that has become apparent with extensive research is that there is a preference for leaders that are attractive, healthy, and importantly for a range of concerns, looks like the person viewing the potential leader. While attractiveness and healthiness are strongly related, Asymmetry in the body and face, clear skin, and a range of indicators of youthfulness play a role in these perceptions. The most fascinating finding concerns possible reasons for racism, the act of preferring people and leaders who are physiognomically similar to us over those who have different physical characteristics. A study by Jeremy Bailenson, Chantal Iyengar, Nick Yee, and Nathan Collins more faces of unknown candidates with pictures of study participants and found that the closer the resemblance to oneself, the greater preference for that candidate once political party cues were removed. The heightened size of a leader likewise has an effect, with a great majority of presidents being taller and or larger than their opposition. Followers prefer to choose leaders who are taller and more specifically have greater body mass. This might also play a role in followers preferring to choose males to lead, as men tend to be larger than women on average. However, multiple other factors are likely the cause of such sex discrimination, including overt and institutional discrimination based upon traditional division of household labor and a tendency for male overconfidence. Furthermore, males are more likely than females to prefer group-level activities over one-to-one interactions, are more likely to enjoy competitive activities, and as a result are more likely to join or build large coalitions of unrelated peers in the pursuit of goals. Finally, as we have discussed earlier, what we perceive as the personality of a potential leader might likewise reflect a bent towards narcissism. Followers prefer leaders who are overconfident and even narcissistic due to their charm, persuasiveness, and sociability. The problem of modern society is that these traits can be mistaken for competence and agreeableness without years of interaction and experience to differentiate the leaders from the posers.